Great. Okay. So, welcome to Freelance Without Fear, how to get paid for doing what you love. I'm Maria Salepi. I'm new to Art Center and to creative careers, and I'm the Associate Director of Creative Entrepreneurship, which is a new program we're rolling out. You'll start to see pilots, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes of what we're going to be doing, but we're very much like shaping the program. So hearing from you is really helpful. I am also an artist, and my passion is helping artists and designers make a sustainable living doing what they love. I started my career as an art director, and then I spent a lot of my career running portfolio programs. I've been a contractor, I've been a solopreneur, I've been a freelancer, I've been a full-time employee, I've been a side hustler. Um, and most of my work is really dedicated to helping artists and creatives really turn their skills and their passion into value, something that they can make a living and find a lot of meaning. So the Creative Entrepreneurship Program is focused on inspiring and preparing students and recent alumni to pursue your own creative ventures, right? We know there's so many your opportunities are endless. Really, it's like what you imagine. And we'll be offering workshops like this, experiential learning opportunities, um, new programs, community. So we'll be developing a community around creative entrepreneurship, networking, and personalized advising. So you'll see some new programs coming in the fall. But I'm curious here if just like to get a sense for kind of what you all have done. Um, Raise your hand or digital hand if you've freelanced before. I'm just curious how many of you are familiar with this. Maybe you're not able to do that because your screens are off. Okay. Well, I imagine that some of you have and some of you haven't, and that's why you're here. Okay, so we kind of talked about who's in the room. And now I want to share what we've got planned. So we'll talk about what creative entrepreneurship is. We're going to then talk about defining your offering, identifying your audience, how you communicate your value. We'll have some time for Q&A, and then I've got some announcements. Okay, so we hear the term creative entrepreneurship. What is it exactly? It is the practice of building a sustainable living by transforming your creative skills, whatever your skills are. And it can be your technical skills, it can be your ideas, expressions into value that people want to pay for. And it's not limited to starting a business. It's fundamentally, it's a mindset and it's an approach to navigating the world of work through autonomy, adaptability, and creativity. What I have found is the biggest difference between creative entrepreneurs and people that aren't as entrepreneurial is that they don't wait for opportunities to come to them, they create opportunities. And I will share some examples. Um, Creative entrepreneurship can look like there's a lot of different terms too, based on what industry you're in or what discipline. Sometimes you'll hear the term solopreneur. Sometimes you'll hear the word freelancing, contracting, studio owner, someone who's selling products on the side. Maybe they've got a full-time job, but they're doing print on demand. So all of these are different forms of creative entrepreneurship. So I want to introduce you to what creative entrepreneurships, what it potentially looks like, right? And it's going to look different for everyone. So this is Forrest Stearns, and he is the founder of Draw Everywhere Studios. He's currently the principal artist, the artist in residence of Google's Quantum AI Lab. And the way he describes his work is that he collaborates with long-term visionaries in scientific institutions to cultivate ongoing creative permission. And when he says creative permission, what he means is he helps people, teams, employees express themselves creatively and create space for them to collaborate and come up with ideas. That's maybe easier to do when you're in an environment like we are, but when you're in a corporate setting or in kind of a business or science-based setting, creativity can be hard to access. And so he helps them. And he does that through large scale illustration based artwork embedded in their building. This is some examples you can see down below. Um, and he helps them tell their story. He calls it kind of illuminating the conversation, and he'll deeply listen to people. He'll sit in on these meetings and he'll hear what they're talking about, what questions they're trying to solve. And then he translates that into visuals and he puts that all over the walls. And the impact of that is it attracts the best talent, right? If you're one of the top scientists or technologists in the world, you know, you've got a lot of options. And at that point, sometimes, just a high salary isn't enough. People want to work at a place that's inspiring to them. They want to feel like they can collaborate with other people. And so that's what he does. He creates this environment that really inspires people to want to show up every day and feel creative and innovative. So this is another creative entrepreneur, and this is Adam Rosendahl. He's a facilitator and founder of a company called Late Night Art. And he works with leadership teams to accelerate connection, creativity, and humanity through facilitated art experiences. And so you can see down below, that's a picture of kind of what his work looks like. But he goes into companies, and unlike Forrest, who will work at one company for like 5 years, a long stretch, Adam works with the top companies all over the world, but he goes in for like half a day or one day and he helps them through this art experience, through music and art making. He helps them connect with each other. And when they feel a sense of connection, feeling they get to know their coworkers, they feel a better sense of belonging, they're able to do better work. So that's the value that he brings. And then there's Meg Lewis. She's a designer and brand therapist and founder of Full Time You. And she works with creative misfits to design their personal brand so they can show up as their full, weird, wonderful selves and get paid for it. But she does a lot more than that. She also does packaging design. She designs typefaces. She does content for Skillshare. She does a lot of different things. And that's something that you'll notice with all of these creative entrepreneurs. They have multiple revenue streams. They do a lot of they've figured out how to turn what they love doing and what they're really good at into something people will pay for. And we'll talk more about how that happens. This is Natalie, and she's a textile artist and founder of Alabama Chanine. And she works with artisans and communities to handcraft heirloom quality garments so people can wear their values and support sustainable local economies. But again, she does more than that. She's got a school of making. She has a project where Project Threadways, which is it's a nonprofit. And so it helps with kind of preserving the craft of her work. Not of her work, but of like textile dyeing. And then lastly, we have Ivan Cash. He's a filmmaker and founder of Cash Studios, and he collaborates with forward-thinking brands to craft participatory campaigns that foster genuine human connection and cultural resonance. So, like all of them, he has multiple revenue streams, and he works with all different types of brands to really help them tell their story in an authentic way. Oh, and this is the last one, Tina Eisenberg. She's also known as Swiss Miss, And she's the founder of Creative Mornings. So I'm sure some of you have heard of Creative Mornings. Maybe you've gone to them. If not, it's an amazing community that happens all over the world. It's free and you show up. It's usually in the mornings, I believe. And it's a community of creatives and they have guest speakers and it's really inspiring. She's also the founder of Tattly, which is a temporary tattoo company. And she creates tools, spaces, and communities that empower creative people to bring more joy, order, and purpose into their work. Now, all of these might seem intimidating, right? Because they are doing lots of different things, but they started small. Um, like, let me show you. So Forrest, he's the one who's at Google Quantum AI Lab. The way he started, he was an illustration student. And while he was still in school, he started an artist collective because he wanted community and he wanted a community to push each other and make great work and also have an opportunity to show work on a regular basis. So they pooled their money together and they got like a studio space that they could share and host monthly art shows. And so that led to him meeting someone that worked at DeviantArt, which was, it's still around, but it's not as big as it used to be. And it's online, art creative community. And then he got hired there to be an art director and to help them, he put some of his illustrations onto clothing and to really help them think and engage the artist community. And then that led to him being invited to Planet Labs. And that's where he also discovered in DeviantArt that he really wanted to focus on more of a science community. So he was learning more about himself with each job. And he discovered that he really wanted to be in a space that's doing cutting edge science. He met one of someone who worked at Planet Labs, and kind of on a whim, he said, could I put art on your satellite? And the guy said, yeah. And Forrest did not expect this guy to say yes. And so that's how it started. So another thing that these creative entrepreneurs have in common is that they are bold. They ask, you can't, it doesn't hurt to ask, right? The worst someone can do is say, um, no, not right now, or, we're not, that doesn't work for what we're trying to do. But this guy said yes. And so he was at Planet Labs for about 5 years and he developed the artist in residence program there. And then someone at Google saw what he was doing at Planet Labs and said, we need that. We're starting this big lab and it's going to be kind of a boring lab space. How do we attract the brightest people to want to show up here every day? It's art. And so Forrest became the artist in residence there. And he does so much more than just putting art on the walls. What he does, he goes into meetings and he really listens to them and he helps translate what they're talking about and the work that they're doing into visual. So he helps them have a visual language around their science. He also, because they all, as I mentioned, have multiple revenue streams, he also does illuminated notes, which is down below, and he gets invited to conferences and he draws the speaker, captures them, and captures key quotes that they're saying and turns it into a work of art. And like works of art that people hang on their wall. They're beautiful. And so he's found another way to turn what he loves doing is capturing people, being around innovative ideas. He gets invited for free to conferences and gets paid to be there to listen to inspiring speakers and turn it into artwork. So you can see how he started small and he iterated. You know, it started with an artist collective and it's grown into this, and he continues to think about and be strategic about where he wants to take his career. Okay, I want to go back one. So you might be thinking, how does creative entrepreneurship, how does that mindset show up as a student, right? Like, How could we spot that? How could you be practicing that mindset now? Well, these are just some examples, but like starting a club, going up to a guest speaker after their talk and introducing yourself and asking more questions, connecting with them on LinkedIn, taking a class outside of your major because you're curious about it, or maybe you want to meet other people outside of your discipline, showing up to an event and talking to someone new. You never know where those conversations are going to go. And Forrest is a great example. He met the guy at Planet Labs, I think one of the founder, on some like in the woods somewhere, like on some kind of retreat or something like that. It's also asking the question, how could this be even better, right? You're kind of scanning the world for problems that you want to solve, that you care about. It could be lobbying the school to make a change. So these are just some examples of what a creative entrepreneurship, what that mindset might look like as a student. So defining your offering. So you'll notice in all those examples, they had a very clear offering. And this is really about finding the balance between enjoyment and practicality. You want to connect the work that you want to do with a problem that people need solving, that they're willing to pay to help you solve it. So I'm sure many of you have heard of this Japanese concept, Ikigai, for it's a reason for being. It kind of helps you identify what your purpose is. And, it's essentially four key questions. What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? What can you get paid for? And if you can answer those four questions, then you can start to put together an offering and connect the dots between what you love doing and what someone will pay you to do. So I'm going to use Forrest as an example. So Forrest, what does he love? He loves drawing everywhere. He named his studio after that. Um, he's really good at drawing and painting and thinking conceptually about space. What does the world need? It needs the brightest people coming together to collaborate and innovate. What can he get paid for? Transforming a boring lab space into a place that attracts the world's top talent to want to work there and show up every day feeling inspired to solve audacious challenges. So now I want to have you all take 5 minutes, and if you've got paper or pen, or you can use your computer if you want to just kind of type it, whatever you prefer. And this is just for you. You'll need to spend more time on these questions, but take 5 minutes and just jot down some initial responses to these four questions. So if you're just joining us, we're taking a couple minutes to answer these questions. Okay, we're going to do one more minute and then we'll move on. Okay. So does, does anyone want to share anything they wrote down or how this exercise felt? Okay. Um, this is just a start. I would encourage all of you to use these questions and go deeper. I will send a handout. I will do a handout after this workshop. I'll send a follow-up note to everyone, and I'll include some of these questions and some of the key things that we're going to talk about. All right, so let's move on. Identifying your audience. This is really important, right? Like you've got an offering, you've got a very clear offering. Now you've got to figure out who that audience is. So, based on the problem that you love to solve, who would be your ideal client, right? There's lots of problems to solve in the world, but most of them probably aren't going to be interesting to you, but some are going to be really interesting. And that's what you want to focus on. So something you can ask is, are there other people getting paid for the work that you want to do? Who actually hires creatives like you? So making an ICP, that's an ideal customer profile, is not a single customer. It's a composite of characteristics that defines the type of customer that is your best case scenario. And by defining your ideal client, you can tailor your offering and your messaging to better fit their needs, right? Like if you're a, branding specialist, right? You're really good at graphic design and branding. That's a solid set of skills. And you've got one client who is focusing on, they need to reach Gen Z, right? They need someone who's a specialty is Gen Z, who can speak that language, knows that like visual language that will speak to them. And then you've got another company that they're trying to talk to moms in their 50s, right? That's a totally different type of communication that they need. It's the same set of skills, but you can see how tailoring who you're talking to makes a big difference, right? So it's really important to know who is your main customer and what their needs are. So an ICP helps you focus your efforts on clients and projects that bring out your best, right? Like if you specialize in Gen Z, you probably wouldn't be super excited about a project focusing on, moms in their 50s, right? So it's good for both. It helps both the client and you stay focused on what's the best match, right? Because everyone wins when it's a good match. So we're going to use Forrest again as an example. So Forrest wants to get paid to draw everywhere. He wants to have a regular salary and do work that creates a high impact. He's passionate about science and technology. He loves illuminating the conversation. He loves helping um, listen deeply and turn that into a visual language. He wants to inspire employees to think expansively. He lives in the Bay Area. He's not able to relocate. And he also wants to have autonomy. He wants to be able to work in his studio and also, go into the office when he needs to. So Forrest's ICP might look something like this. Cutting edge science company who can afford to have an artist on staff, right? So if it's a science company that's got 5 people, they probably can't afford to have an artist on staff. Um, they are challenged with attracting the brightest people and inspiring them to show up every day to solve complex challenges, right? Because he wants to impact the physical lab space. He wants to impact putting art on the walls. And so, what problem does that solve? Well, it makes people want to be there. It brightens, the environment. It makes it more energetic and exciting. The company's based in the Bay Area because he doesn't want to move. They value innovation and they have audacious goals that require big thinking. And they understand the impact that art has on creating an environment that inspires innovation. And they want to participate in the process. He says he doesn't like arting at people. He likes engaging and helping his clients create the art, right? Like he listens to them and understands what they're trying to do, and then he translates that. So now I want to have you, let's take 5 minutes. And I want you to think about what your ideal customer profile is. Now, again, this will take more than 5 minutes, but it's good to just kind of get started and you can jot down like your initial thoughts. So these are some of your questions that you can answer. And don't feel like you don't have to answer all of them. Like maybe location doesn't matter to you. Maybe you're willing to go anywhere. So you can skip that question. So let's take 5 minutes and just jot down some of what your ICP would be, just kind of some of the answer to these questions. Okay, 2 more minutes. Okay. So hopefully you've gotten a little bit of an ICP profile, and I would encourage you to kind of go back and uh, continue to work on this, get more detailed. And then once you have your ICP, you might be wondering, okay, what do I do with that? Then I would suggest making oh, sorry about that. Then I would suggest making a spreadsheet, and then you research who fits your ICP, right? Who fits that profile. And so that's a really great start when you are ready to do outreach. Um, you are setting yourself up for success, and they're going to be more excited about you because again, it's just you're looking for the best match. Okay, communicating your value. Blair Ennis, I love this quote, sell the outcome, not the process. The client is not buying your process, they're buying the results. And we tend to, as artists and designers, we focus on our tools, but what we really should be doing is focusing on the change that happens because of our work, right? People don't necessarily care about logos. They don't necessarily want to pay for a new logo. What they want is to attract new clients. And that's what the logo does. So you want to think about the impact that your work has. Every offering should promise some sort of transformation. So every business, you should all have a transformation statement. And a transformation statement quickly communicates the value your service provides. This is your elevator pitch, right? It's a one sentence thing. What do you do? What's the outcome? And how do you do it? So your service helps your clients go from X to Y. And this is a template that you can use. I help whatever your target audience is achieve specific outcome through the methodology or service that you do. So here are some examples. So instead of saying, I design logos, try, I help early stage startups express their identity clearly so they attract investors and customers. Do you see how, like, if you were a business owner and someone was like, oh, I design logos, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. But if the next person was like, yeah, I will help you attract customers and investors with the logos that I make, they're like, that's what I need. So you want to really think about the impact that what you do has. So here's another one. I create unique illustrations. Instead of saying something like that, you could say, I help small business owners show up confidently and consistently with images that make their brand feel credible and relatable. that shows that you're really thinking about their business and you're really helping them meet the goals that they have, right? Here are some more examples. I help creative founders shape the look and feel of their brand so it resonates across web, social, and packaging. I help growing companies level up from inconsistent visuals to a cohesive brand identity that builds trust and drives recognition. I help first-time founders go from scattered brand ideas to a polished visual identity in 30 days. I work with visionary founders to clarify and shape the visual story of their brand before they go to market. I help editorial teams turn abstract concepts into striking visual narratives that hook readers and elevate storytelling. So you see how this one sentence is so powerful, right? Because it tells us who do you work with and where do you take them, right? You take them from where they are now, X, to Y. And the way you do it is through the method or the service. So now I want to have you all give it a try and think about what your transformation statement is. And you can use this format or you can play with it, but this is maybe a good start. And let's just spend like maybe 3 or 4 minutes and come up with a transformation statement. And we'll just do 1 more minute. And I can go back and show these examples if that's helpful. Okay. So let's move on and we'll do a recap. So creative entrepreneurship is a practice of transforming your talent, your skills, creative skills into value. And there's so many different ways that you can do that. It starts with a mindset of creating opportunities for yourself. And that means asking questions. It means talking to people outside of your group, outside of your discipline, outside of your industry. Um, it means showing up to events, really a lot of my personal experience and like Forrest as an example and others, they got their break. They got an invitation to do something really cool because they went to some event and they started talking to a stranger and connecting with them and learning about them. And then they saw the connection. Oh, I think I could provide value in this way. Let me just ask. And oftentimes people will say yes. So, and the worst thing that they can say is no, and then you're no worse off. So it really is about looking for opportunities, creating opportunities for yourself, um, thinking what problems do you see in the world that you care about, that you want to solve. Um, it's also defining your offering is really about connecting the work that you want to do with problems people need help solving. So that requires getting to know what people's problems are, right? It's goes back to asking questions, being curious, talking to lots of different people, and then identifying your audience. So once you've figured out the problem you want to solve, who has that problem? Who are those people? Seeking them out, and then also making sure, is this really a problem that they have, or do you just think it's a problem that they have? Then creating an ideal customer profile, an ICP. And it's, as you saw, it's not a specific customer. It's not like, you know, I want to work for Google. It's, a science company or a tech company, Bay Area. They care about innovation, so it's really a profile of characteristics. And this is your best case scenario profile. Once you have that profile, there's lots of companies or people that fit into that profile. Then you start a spreadsheet and you can, start to make a list of all the people that are your ideal customer that you're going to reach out to. When communicating your value, you want to think about not, you want to sell the outcome. What's the impact that your work has on them, on their business, not the process? You should think about with every offering that you have, what is the transformation that they're buying? You know, they're not buying a logo, they're buying, uh, you know, a new relationship with their customers, right? Or it's allowing them to connect with a new type of audience that they haven't been able to connect to before. And one way to think about it is your service helps your clients go from X to Y, right? What is that transformation? So these are just some of the, kind of to start thinking about as you think about your offering and your audience. There's of course a lot more, but there's gonna be a lot more workshops. I want to make a few announcements before we do some Q&A. So Art Market is going to happen at the alumni reunion, which is September 28th. And we are going to start accepting applications June 16th. So you'll hear more about this. You're hearing this first. And we are going to, with the Art Market, we're going to have a, uh workshop. So all participants will be part of a workshop and will help you think about the pricing strategy, um, how you talk to customers will really help you, will set you up for success. So that's going to be required. If you do Art Market, you'll need to participate in a prep workshop, which will help you be more successful, and then a post workshop where we'll come together and kind of reflect on what we learned. Then there's a workshop on negotiating. And this is not just for like negotiating a salary or in the workplace. this is a great skill to have. And we negotiate all the time, right? When you get in your car and you drive to Art Center, you're negotiating with the other drivers. Um, when you're with your roommate or your family who you live with, you negotiate all the time who's doing the chores and that sort of thing. So it really, it's just when we are negotiating with money, we tend to get anxious. So we're going to talk about that and we're going to practice it. Then we have another workshop, and this we have a entertainment lawyer who's going to be joining us and leading this workshop. And this is all about, I missed an L there, learning how to use the law to maximize your art. And the great thing about Andrew, he's the lawyer who's going to come and give this talk. He's an artist. He was a theater guy for like 4 years. He went to NYU theater school. So he has a lot of empathy. He understands what it's like to be in your shoes. And it inspired him to study law. And now he helps other artists really, maximize the law to their benefit. Then I want to remind everyone or let everyone know we have creative entrepreneurship advising. So that has started this term, and you can find that where you find the other advising on Connect. And yeah, so those are some of the announcements. And now I'd love to open it up to Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then I want to just remind everyone it is recorded. If you have a question, I'd love to hear it. If you're feeling shy, you can put it in chat. That's no problem, and I'll answer it. So I'm curious, or if you have a question, or are there other things that you want to know about? Like, what are some other workshops that we should host? I'm curious, like the business side, personal branding, um, tax
Um,
stuff. Yeah.
Maybe a question that I have because I feel like a lot of us I've seen the chat are in our upper term and we probably have our own websites up. Probably maybe a big question for me is like, how is the best way to like capitalize on the website and like what do we like specifically put and what do we not put in the website? It's kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Andy, for asking that. It really depends. The website is, you want to think about who is coming to your website and what do you want them to do. So, I would give a different answer if it was someone who says, I want someone to come to my website, look at all my great work and say, I need to reach out to Andy and see if we can hire him full time. As opposed to what if you want you want to start your own studio, be a solopreneur, then you would have something a little bit different on your website. You would probably position yourself more as like, sometimes people will say it's a studio, even if it's oftentimes one person. They'll hire out if they need to on project by project basis, but then you'd want to have a clear offering. So I think it really starts with thinking about what is the goal of the website, right? Because again, it's similar to the transformation statement. No one really they don't want to spend money on logos. They want to spend money so that they can get more clients. And one way to do that is to have a great logo. So thinking like, why are people coming to your website? What do you want them to do after they visit your website? And then building that. So it's being really clear. Someone should go to your website and know what kind of work you want to do, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And I would encourage all of you too, if you haven't done advising, the Creative Careers team is fantastic. They will, help you with your portfolio. They look at hundreds of portfolios. They talk to recruiters. They know what recruiters are looking for if you're looking for that sort of thing. Um, I would say if you're looking for freelance or doing your own practice, which probably most of you are because you're in this workshop, get an advising appointment with me. And we can look at it specifically and I can give more tailored feedback. What else? What other questions? Because chances are, if you have a question, you're not the only one that has that same question. Okay, here's one. What resources do you think would be good to read for starting our personal brand? That's a great question. And that's uh, something that I'm going to be developing a list for. I'm wondering, okay, so this, I'm so glad I have it handy. Um, this is a great book. I have found this to be a really great book. And um, if you're interested, so it's Building a Story Brand, Donald Miller. And I think you can see a lot of, if you Google this, I think the framework, it's a great book. Like I literally, when I was doing my own brand, I have it, it's all like marked up. I highlighted, it's really a great book that I go back to. So I would recommend this one. And let me think more about the question. But as far as what resource I think would be, I would say looking at doing research on who do you admire, whose work do you find inspiring, or their business do you find inspiring, their personal brand. Like some of the examples I showed you in the follow-up one pager that I send to you, I'll link all of those artists or those creative entrepreneurs because I find them very inspiring. They have exciting websites. Their offer is very clear. It's very unique to them. They communicate the value that they provide very clearly, and it's dynamic. They're doing lots of different things, but it's cohesive. So I would say a good thing to do is just research, like poke around, research. Um, and I think a starting point is, you can like poke around at some of the people that I highlighted in this presentation. And then I don't know if we pronounce Solar, but I will be working on a resource list. That's one thing that we're going to be definitely doing and prioritizing is building out the creative entrepreneurship website with like books and just, all the information that you need. Anyone else? And you can type it in the chat. Okay. Well, I would encourage all of you. It's so great to see. I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here. It's so great to see a nice group. One thing that we want to do as well is create a community because it can be really isolating to be working on your own, to be a solopreneur or, a freelancer or starting your own business and being able to do it in community is really helpful. You learn a lot. It just is, as someone who's done it myself, having community makes a huge difference. So we're also going to be working on that. You're so welcome, Solar, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And I would say too, if you make a if you've got some questions, you maybe don't want to share it right now, make an advising appointment with me, and we can then talk about it, specifically what you're interested in. Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks all for your time, and look out for more workshops. We're working on content this quarter or this term, and then the fall, we're really going to be rolling out a lot of good stuff. Great. Okay, well, take care. See you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Irene.